podcast. They're waiting for you.
Start spreading the news. Welcome back to We Are Just These Guys, you know.
What's happening?
I am Lance.
And I am Mike.
And we didn't get our usual thumbnail shot. Hang on, don't move.
Oh.
He doesn't understand, don't move.
I thought you were telling everybody else. I thought everybody else froze.
Now, maybe we got a thumbnail shot there. If not, it'll just be...
It'll
say episode 31.
31.
31.
That's crazy, isn't it? 31.
That's a milestone. 31 episodes.
31 weeks.
Okay. That's enough. Thank you, guys.
Settle down, everybody. So I've got a observation.
You have an observation?
Yeah, real quick observation.
Okay.
You know, we always start these out with mindless, which is ironic. Mindless banter.
On a show focused on the mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
see, I'm with you.
Yep. You are the only human being that I know, and I don't know any other non-humans either that do this, that drink coffee out
of
a regular cup.
Not a regular cup.
Well,
a Tupperware cup.
That's the key?
Yes.
Tupperware.
Plastic.
So why do you do that?
For a couple of reasons. One, I'm a klutz, and when you fill up a coffee mug and you move around, I do spill coffee everywhere because I can't stand still. And then secondly, if I drop it, there's a good chance the coffee cup will break, which I've done that a few times.
Okay.
And so I accommodate my disability by, and then thirdly, it holds so much more that by the time it cools down, then you can just start chugging it and
there you go.
Loading the caffeine.
Okay. Well, who knew Tupperware was just that much more valuable?
Now, I have a surprise for you. I am presenting Mike with a gluten-free chocolate-covered donut.
Gluten-free?
Gluten-free. Fresh out of the freezer.
Put it on a stick?
He's looking at it. He's holding it. He's smelling it.
And it is cold. You're right.
It is cold.
Fresh out now. So what
I
do you
don't
mean
lie.
fresh out of the freezer?
Fresh out of the freezer.
I want to break a tooth?
No, you're not going to break a tooth. You're going to break a heart. That right there is what heaven made of. And he's chewing and he's looking.
Hold on.
And he's got a mouthful of donut. Now he's chugging some coffee.
There it was.
They're
That's
good?
That's why the guy that started Dunkin' Donuts put that together.
A genius.
Coffee and donuts. Do you know what saved Dunkin' Donuts ultimately? Not going under.
No.
By the way, that's really good. Gluten-free. Where the heck did you find this thing? You went to some freezer aisle. Aldi's?
Aldi's.
I thought I recognized the A in Aldi's starting to come out of your mouth. The of Aldi's.
Right. Well, back when we'll get back to the Dunkin' Donuts thing in a minute, people. We have ADD. Settle down. When Aldi's, when you first told me about gluten-free, I ended up at Aldi's and sitting in the freezer aisle was this box of gluten-free donuts. Oh, what the heck? I'll grab some and get home and I'm reading it and it says keep in the freezer until ready to serve and then put out on the cabinet and let go to room temperature. Well, I can't wait.
Yep.
Stare at a donut for 30 minutes waiting for thaw out. No.
Yeah.
So I just grabbed it out of the freezer and ate it and it was really good. Now, I did let one sit out to room temperature and found my preferences.
Cold.
The frozen donut.
Yeah.
So I went back to Aldi's to get them and they didn't have any. And I went back and they didn't have any. And I went back and they didn't have any. And I went back and they didn't have any.
Word is out.
I called the manager, or didn't call him. I'm not that. But while I was in there shopping one day, the manager happened to be there. And I called him over and said, hey, what's up? Where's all the chocolate-covered gluten-free donuts? And he said, those are a specialty item. We get them in once every 5 or 6 months. And when they come in, they go pretty quickly. So you just kind of have to watch.
So do you now have a freezer full of them?
You read my mind. We were shopping, and Tish was looking in the little freezer aisle, and she went, whoa, oh my God, look right here. So, like good neighbors, we got 2 boxes. And then got the idea, we're not going to see these again for 6 months. So we bought 10.
So you're like, toilet paper in a pandemic.
Yes.
Or you're gonna sell them on eBay.
I could. I'd probably get $20 a box, 30, easy.
I'll give you 15 right now.
How big old boy are you?
Those are good. So, Dunkin'.
Yes.
What ultimately saved Dunkin' Donuts, because I just saw, Don and I love to watch those Made in America, Food That Made America, or whatever it is. You don't ever watch that?
No.
It's fascinating stuff.
I'm sure it is.
Yep. But Dunkin' Donuts was actually saved by that hole in the center.
Really?
The donut hole. They had gotten to a point to where business had peaked. It was getting ready to tail off. Krispy Kreme was actually kicking Dunkin's rear because Krispy Kreme, the idea behind Krispy Kreme is they wanted to bring the donut making process to the public. So that's the deal. You watch the donuts being made, as they go through, and then you eat you eat a nice warm donut there. Krispy Kreme, they got a thing going on.
Yeah.
And so Dunkin' was really kind of starting to tail off. They had gone and opened up a bunch of franchises and all that. And somebody came to them with the donut hole. All that dough that we've been wasting.
Throwing out the holes.
Yep, we can use it. And that's what saved it. And to this day, it's its largest seller.
Really?
And because of the children, think about kids. Kids love donut holes because they're not trying to eat a whole donut. Parents love giving kids donut holes because they're not trying to feed them a whole donut. So, yep, the old donut hole.
Well,
gluten-filled, by the way.
I feel educated.
Yeah. There's your morning education. Mindless education.
Well,
it's really good.
I have some morning education for you then. I was looking at our broadcast statistics and saw that we have listeners in Canada. And not just anywhere in Canada, but in Alberta.
Ooh, nice.
So a shout out
Alberta.
to our Alberta, Canada fans, which led me to the question, what do you say to an Alberta fan in Canada to, kind of connect with them? Aloha, don't work for the Albertan. That doesn't connect. So what could you say to really draw that Alberta, Canada listener in, feel like they're at home when they're listening to this podcast?
Well,
now, if the donut I given you this morning had jelly in it,
oh yeah,
and you wanted to communicate that to somebody from Alberta, you would say, "Hey, Ozer, how's the jam buster, eh?"
The jam buster.
It's a jam buster.
Did you get that at Tim Hortons, eh?
Jelly-filled donut.
You ever heard of Tim Hortons?
No.
Tim Hortons is one of the best coffee and donut places that there is in all of the world.
Mike knows all there is to know about coffee and donuts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a connoisseur. Tim Hortons is arguably the number one reason that I used to love to go back into Canada on business trips.
So you've been to Canada?
Oh, yeah, many times. Ontario and Quebec. So, bonjour, Quebec. And we would go into Tim Hortons, and the deal was the very first time, as a matter of fact, I took Dawn into Canada. I gave her a $20 bill, U.S., sent her up to the counter to get a couple of donuts and a couple of cups of coffee. I was doing this on purpose. I wanted her to go order it. So she goes up there and she gets the coffee and the donuts, and she comes back. Let me just shut that off. She comes back and she has this blank look on her face because she now has donuts and she has coffee and she has more money than she went up there with. And I said, now let me explain exchange. The reality is you can't come up here and go shopping and end up with more money.
Sure.
And so it was fun. It was fun. Come back with some loonies and some toonies. And yeah, Alberta. That's cool.
Yep.
Welcome.
And I did put on my gaunch this morning.
Yeah. You've done some Googling.
My men's underwear.
Gunch?
Gaunch.
Huh.
G-O-N-C-H.
Well, I've never heard of that.
Gaunch or gonk?
Yeah.
Gaunch. And later I'll be wearing a bunny hug.
Bunny hug?
A bunny hug.
Bunny hug.
A hooded sweatshirt. So welcome to Alberta.
Yeah. Now, is that specific to Alberta, or is that just a whole Canadian thing?
You know, we're just going to have to. We're just going to have to drive up there and find out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I finished it. That was good. Try not to make too many noises here.
You've been chewing into the microphone.
I know.
And suddenly you're going to be
Letting
considered.
everybody. Yeah. Now that I'm done.
Now that you're done. Slurping.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that we probably have some folks out there that join us that aren't necessarily football fans, but I can't help but at least just make a quick observation that was one of the best opening weekends of college football as far as the real opening goes that there's been in a while.
Really?
I mean, to tell you, the upsets and the characters, the games themselves. I mean, and this wasn't even like this coming weekend. We got Texas and Alabama. We got some real rivalry type stuff going on. Some real high level competitions. But man, when you just consider Colorado alone and what they did, the fact that you might not like Prime, but the dude backs it up.
Yes.
He talks the talk. He is so stinking. You want to talk about positive thinking? He is so positive. And that's the key. That's what has all of his guys who were 86 young men, brand new to the roster. You want to talk about all the excuses that are out there of being able to, well, we got to have time to blend and gel them and get them to play together.
Right.
We got to figure out how to unify. These might take a little while.
Right.
It's a rebuilding year.
We got a 3-year plan.
Yeah, he didn't.
Because I have a 3-year contract.
A rebuilding year ain't even in his vocabulary.
Well, he would appreciate something Roger Marshall said recently.
Okay.
Roger Marshall is a U.S. Senator from Kansas,
Yep.
and he said we need to move from tired to inspired.
Ooh. That. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think of when I see Prime and is talking about how the game went, talking about football, talking about young men, talking about coaching. It's very much he said something in an interview that before they left, before they got on the plane, they knew they were going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just watched the movie Champions last night with Woody Harrelson, and he becomes a coach of a basketball team with kids with special needs, adults with special needs.
Oh, cool.
And
I've heard of that.
he was talking to them about visualize being on the floor and being champions when they go to the championship game. And here in the practice, he was telling them, close your eyes, see yourself on the floor after the game, banners streaming, and you are champions.
Mm-hmm.
And then he talked to each one of them specifically about why they were already a champion.
Yep.
So that they could go to the game and be the champion they already are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this whole thing. Now what we're finding, and you knew it had to be the case, is that they have been filming from day one. Like from the day he was still thinking about taking the job.
That does not surprise me one bit.
No, but all along. So as an example, he had in one video a hoodie on that says, "We're coming," and then in his pregame speech, he kind of wrapped it all up with, "We're not coming anymore. We're here." And he didn't even have to say it. Everybody else said it.
Sure.
And so it is a culture that he creates. And it's a culture of, listen, it is flat out going to be the reality that we are here and we are going to win. And dang, if they didn't beat the runner-up national champions from last year.
Sure.
Not just like a pushover. The very first game that's scheduled, he goes out and whoops a big team. It's so amazing. And I know they're going to continue the players they got. The kid from Derby, he was the real star.
Was he?
This kid who initially signed at K-State, and then he signed at Notre Dame, and then Prime was like, "You got to come here. You know, you need to be a part of what we're doing here." And he did, and I mean, there were several guys that stood out in that game. One kid played like 139 plays because he played offense and defense.
Really?
Yeah, in 100-degree weather.
Wow.
Now tell me, and at the end of the game, one of the reporters asked him if he was ready for a nap or if he was wiped out, and he said, "No, I'm ready for another quarter," because he had gone from tired to inspired.
Yes. Positive thinking.
Yep. The power of the mind. Oh my gosh. It's just so amazing. And K-State had a great game. The young man from Mays, Avery Johnson, he got in and got some playing time. It was great.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
How are you feeling about your football prediction for?
I hate that I actually made that prediction.
Chiefs
but
versus the Lions.
They got to be on upset alert. They just have to. So that's Thursday night, I think.
Yes.
And I don't want them to lose, but I just feel like.
Now here's what's going to happen. That prediction, that podcast drops Wednesday night.
Oh, perfect.
And then the game is Thursday.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking as I was editing all of that, I was like, do we need to get Mike some protection?
Yeah. Maybe so. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting game. Watch, the Chiefs will just blow them out, which I'll be totally cool with that. But yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. All of the teams that used to be just bottom dwellers have really put it together. It's created a lot of, what do you call that? Parity. And it's fun to watch. It's like every game is a fun game to watch. So Dawn is not much of a football fan, so that's not too pleasing for her. But I told her, I said, football season started. She said, "I'll see you in 6 months." I was like, all right.
Got your foam finger.
Yep.
Your cheese dip.
Yep.
Gluten-free cheese dip.
Yep. It's good, though. It's fun. I love this time of year.
Moving from tired to inspired.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just speak for myself. I can find myself being habitually tired. And it's not because I'm actually tired. It's a habit of feeling, of letting myself. And then that keeps me from doing some of the things that I could be doing to not be tired.
Right.
Yeah. Like more exercise.
Right.
Or, just continuing to. I still love a good nap, a power nap. I just need 10 minutes, and it helps a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But if I'm not careful, I can find myself really enjoying the recliner way too much. I'll get that 10 in, and then I'll just hang out there for a while. So, yeah. Tired to inspired. That's really good. I like it. I think that could very well describe the church. And I won't even use the pandemic or COVID as an excuse. I think that we were there before.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that we had just kind of settled into just accepting. So tired to me is also just kind of apathy of accepting that where you are is okay. And it's never really okay because we've always got a mission out in front of us to continue to the Great Commission, to go. And so hopefully that's where we're headed. I think we are. I think we're rolling in that direction more so than we have in any other time that I can think of, but still a whole lot of inspiration to go. And so I'm looking forward to it.
So how do you inspire yourself? Question of the day. How do you inspire yourself?
Well, personally, how I inspire myself is again by observing others who are out ahead of me, like Prime, like Deion, like a John Maxwell. I watch videos. I try to feed as much into my mind, the inspirational stuff, the stuff that's really valuable, scripture, obviously, just feeding again.
So somebody like Prime, when you watch his the documentaries about him, when you watch his TV interviews,
Yeah.
that inspires you to go be a football player? Or?
No, just to pursue advancement, just to go after what you might have thought wasn't possible. And it just gets you, like my skin starts to crawl. I get goosebumps. I get chicken skin on my goosebumps. And it makes me want to do.
So when you see him being successful in a situation where everybody was predicting he would not be successful, when you see his attitude about how he kind of went about doing that, that opens the door for you, says you can do this thing in front of you.
For me, on a personal level, what it does is it inspires me, and I always picture myself in front of the church. I always picture myself where we can be, and so that's the team that I see myself leading,
Sure,
and wanting to inspire, and so always, every time, that's where I go with it, and so that kind of stuff is exactly what I need and want.
Well, do you remember Prime, when he got his name Prime? Do you remember how he played the game?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember how the attitude that he carried? He played two sports. He played baseball and football and excelled at both. And there was an old, I don't know if it was a Domino's pizza commercial or Pizza Hut, one or the other, but when he signed with the Cowboys, Pizza Hut's marketing was, do you want a pepperoni pizza or do you want a, side of bread or something? But they were having a big 2-for-1 kind of special. And, they're giving people the option. You want this, you want that. And they were going both. Asking Prime, do you want this, you want that? And he's like, both. And then Jerry Jones stands in and says, do you want 10 million, you want 15 million? And he says, both. Because he signed that huge contract with the Cowboys for $25 million. Everybody was kind of shocked, but he was a very inspiring player. He's very positive. He said, I'm going to do this, and he went out and did it, and he did impossible things in baseball. He did impossible things in football, set different records, and he did it with pizzazz and class.
Yep.
And then he's just kind of always carried that. I remember a story where he got arrested. Dun, dun, dun. There's a button over there for this or something.
That's not it.
That's another one. But he got arrested. And, when you see that Deion Sanders arrested, the trolls come out, what did he? And he's like,
I knew it.
I did it. I was out and the fish were jumping and I know I didn't have a license, but I couldn't help myself. He got a ticket for fishing without a license.
Yeah.
But even in that, it was an inspiring moment. Go do what you want and accept the responsibility for your actions. He's just always been that character.
Yep.
That's always been very positive, forward-thinking, motivational. Don't say don't, can't. Don't say can't.
Yeah.
Can't, never, could.
Yep. Now I did.
Everything's always possible.
Yeah, I did notice that. It's interesting to take the psychology behind all of it. Excuse me. And so before the game, he's talking about, this ain't about them. This ain't even about our opponent. This is about us. This ain't about our naysayers. This is about us. This ain't about anybody else. This is about us.
Fundamental number one.
Mm-hmm, yep. And then what he does.
I control what I think, what I do, and what I feel.
Yep. And then he continues to take that. So after the game,
sure,
he's now saying to the naysayers, we keep receipts. He's using it as motivation to get them on his side to become believers. He kept saying, do you believe now? Do you believe now? And he's like, because they're having to sit there. So he uses their, naysaying as motivation, but in the right moment.
Sure.
Yeah. So, it's not like he doesn't pay attention to the things that they write and all this and that, but he doesn't allow the team, when it needs to be focused on controlling what they do, controlling what they think, controlling how they move forward.
And I've always used, quarterbacks as the analogy to these fundamental thought processes. And in athletics, you hear these things. These guys are highly successful in what they do, or they wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be on TV. Well, how do they be successful in what they do? And same with people in finance who are very successful in finances. They talk about having a short memory.
Yeah.
Because you can't change the past, and to go live and revel in the past does you no good. And our team was 1-11 last year, Colorado. Mm-hmm. Well, that was last year. This is this year.
Yep.
We control what's in front of us. And he got players in there. He recruited his own players that he wanted. And they may not have been the biggest or the tallest or the fastest, but they had, the football knowledge. They had the ability to be positive and motivated. He went and got players that wanted. He's kind of like Mike Tomlin's always fond of saying, we don't want hostages.
Yeah.
We want people who want to be here.
Yep.
We don't want hostages. If you're in this program and you don't agree with what we're doing, there are other programs.
Oh yeah, they had many guys that decided they were going to step away from what was about to happen there because they didn't think it was going to go this way.
And he's not using that, keeping the receipts. He's not using that as a punishment.
Sure. No.
Or to be smart aleck or to rub your face in it. But it's kind of like if you're scared to jump off the diving board, well, how do you get the courage to jump off the diving board? You jump off the diving board. Mm-hmm. And once you jump off the diving board, what you tell yourself about that experience is key to whether or not you'll jump off of it again.
Sure.
And if you jump off the diving board and say, well, I was lucky, and well, you were there to catch me, and well, if you don't, bring the receipts, no, I went up there, I stood on the edge, I took the risk, I jumped, I landed, I'm safe. Now I get the courage to do it again because I'm looking to the past and evaluating it realistically. And that's what he's doing with his players is everybody's been telling you. And when he's talking to the press, he's not talking to the press. I mean, I know Prime and I know he's talking to the press, but he's also got another audience in his mind.
Sure.
Because he knows those kids are going to be listening to the press conference.
Oh, yeah.
And he's showing them the attitude he wants them to have. Mm-hmm. And y'all said we couldn't do this, and we did it. Mm-hmm. And that's a message to the team is don't listen to the negative voices in your head. Don't listen to the negative voices in your circle. Stay focused on what you're wanting to accomplish and believe you can do anything.
Yep.
There's nothing you cannot do.
So I highly suspect that they will not go 1-11.
Yeah.
I think there's a pretty good chance they won't do that.
And I highly suspect there will be a documentary coming.
Oh, yeah.
About Prime's first season in Colorado.
Netflix has already been ringing his phone off the hook. It's probably already happened.
I'm sure they've been filming it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Prime's not done.
Nope. No, heck no, he ain't done. Yeah, it's perfect. It's cool.
And that's the inspiration is, move from tired to inspired.
Mm-hmm.
We sit back and say, well, they're good. They were number one last year. We don't stand much of a chance. We look at, Ford said, obstacles are those things you see when you take your eyes off the road.
Mm-hmm.
And if you kind of use that analogy, when you're driving down the road, where are your eyes?
Sure.
They're on your destination. You're looking down the road where you're headed. I may be heading to Dallas to get to Dallas. I can't see Dallas, but to get to Dallas, I got to get over to 35. And once I get on 35, I got to look straight down the road, head towards, Oklahoma. I have to keep my eyes. And when if I look to the right or the left, what's going to happen to my car? I'm going to veer off the road into the ditch.
Right.
And that's what happened to Peter. Jesus said,
took his eyes right off of him.
Come to me. He stepped out of the boat, eyes on Jesus, began walking on the water. And when did he sink? When he looked at the
waves.
storms.
Yep.
When he looked at the problems, not the solution. When he looked at, why I can't be doing this versus what I'm trying to do.
Yep.
When he took his eyes off the person who believed in him and no longer was, inspired by the motivation, the belief the other person had in him, the belief Jesus had in him, come to me. He wouldn't have said come if he didn't think you could come. Come, sink. I knew you couldn't do it. I was just going to see if you would get out of the boat. No.
See how long you can hold your breath.
Yeah. That is not what he said come because he knew.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think, boy, I wouldn't want to be Peter. No, he's the only one that stepped out of the boat.
Yeah.
The other 11 dudes were cowering in the boat, not even willing to step out. So tired to inspired, it starts with stepping out of the boat.
And for people in our role, you as a pastor, me as a psychologist, oftentimes people will say to me, I couldn't do your job. I couldn't listen to that nonsense all day long.
Right.
But the only thing that frustrates me, the only thing that really, bothers me is when people quit trying.
Sure.
If you're going to try, I'll work with you for the next 20 years. If I see you're working at it, if you're trying, if you're putting in effort, whether you're moving or not moving, if you're trying, I will be there all day, every day.
Yeah.
But it's when somebody quits or gives up, or when somebody says they can't do it, or when, there's such an obvious positive outcome to something and they choose something is a negative for them.
Mm-hmm.
That there's so many reasons to do it this way, to pursue this goal, and they pursue a different goal. And it's hard to watch somebody flame out.
Sure.
It's hard to watch somebody just drive their car into a ditch on purpose over and over and over.
When you can see very clearly that the only thing that's holding them back is right between their ears. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing else. It's only their willingness to go from tired to inspired, to do the little things that it takes just to keep moving forward. And I experience the same thing a lot of times with people where they just simply want you to do for them what they must do for themselves. Or they get themselves into a place where, I tell you what, I see this a lot. And I hesitate to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I'm not hesitating that much. Mm-hmm. I think people use prayer as one of the biggest crutches that there is. And that can rub a whole lot of people wrong, or they can completely misunderstand. So to explain just a little bit, I think so often we will say a prayer, and we'll say a prayer that we want God to do something for us. And he's like, you can do that yourself. If you just get up and if you will just go, you've got this. And so prayer as a, just using God as our maidservant, I just think it's worthless. That might be harsh, but I just think it's an excuse is what it is.
Sure.
To sit still until God does something. So you're just going to sit there and expect him to pay the bill, as an example, or fix the relationship. When if we would just go from tired to inspired, we could see that relationship fixed. We could see that bill get paid. We could see.
Well, I think that's where these two come together. Inspired. I'm inspired to do what? How do you? Where does the inspiration fit into that whole equation? Well, you first must know what you're after. What do you want? How do you want things to be inspired? And so, Roger Marshall, as a politician, will hold out the vision of a different future and say, this is possible. And then he works to try to inspire, people to pursue that new future. Mm-hmm. And that's what we can do for ourselves is, what do I want in my life? How do I want my life to go? Do I want to learn to play the guitar? Do I want to, work out and get into better health? Mm-hmm. Do I want to live pain-free? What do I want? And then figuring out the way to inspire yourself to achieve that. Now, it helps if other people are trying to inspire you as well.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you have to believe, you have to buy in, and you have to have the hope and the courage. And that's what, to me, that's what the New Testament kind of keeps coming back to. Paul said, do not be anxious, but in all things through prayer, thanksgiving and belief, tell God what you want. Mm-hmm. When you get that image fixed in your mind, when you tell him what you want, that's when the peace that surpasses all understanding comes upon you. Is when you tell him what you want, not tell him what you don't want, not take this from me, not go fix this for me, pay my bills. No, tell me what you want. When he tells you what you want, I think is when the pathway starts to unfold in front of you. And then the courage, the faith to take the first step down that pathway. Mm-hmm. He lights the lamp at my feet. There's a scripture, I don't remember it very well, but I remember the pastor talking about it. But the master comes into the house and leaves the servants out in the field while he's eating dinner. He said, what are you doing? Your servants are still out there working. And he was relating that to faith. He said, the fields aren't finished. So why would I bring them in if the field's not finished? And that's, faith. And Peter, ye of little faith. Well, he didn't have little faith in terms of an amount, because Jesus said if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could tell this mountain to move and the mountain would move. Right. It's the length of time that you maintain that faith. How long do you believe in the promise? And so the analogy is the workers out in the field, that's our faith. Mm. And we put the faith to work, and then we go on with our lives. I believe that he will show a way for this. Now, I don't see it today. It's the end of the 30-minute sitcom. We don't have a resolution to all of this. It may take weeks. It may take months. It may take different efforts and trying. But having the faith and the belief that I can do this, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. Mm-hmm. Having the vision of what you want, and it doesn't, vision, I want to be in this big dream, but it can be, I want to be in better health.
Sure.
I want to, enjoy my days more than I currently enjoy them now. Mm-hmm. I want to find fun and enjoyable activities in my life but I want to do that in a way that's good for me, good for the people around me. And I don't know what that is. So that's where you camp out. Because I think when you camp out there, when you say, Lord, I want, to be stable financially. Well, a spreadsheet doesn't just show up in your email. So I want to be stable financially. And as you focus on that, then ideas start to come to you. And then it's up to you to discern which of these is what he's wanting me to do.
Yeah. And then it boils down to your belief being, well, think of it this way. Faith is belief in action. So it boils down to what you're willing to do to put your belief into action, which turns into faith, which turns into a new expectation. How do we expect things to go? And then that's when the things start to turn into a positive experience. And because it's the self-fulfilling prophecy stuff that I'm telling you, every time we change our expectation, it might not end up being exactly what you expected, but it's way better than what it would have been had you gone into it in a negative approach, or like you're always saying, what you don't want. Focused on what you don't want. And man, that's an epidemic, really. Which is why you wrote the book.
Negative thinking and worrying just eat people's lunch. And it's the, what I've always run into, and I'm hesitating a lot here. What I run into a lot is, that sounds great. How do you do it? And so I came up with the how to do it.
Yep.
But now that requires daily drudgery work on their part.
Yep.
And that's always the hard part. And so if I have a chance to work with somebody on these things, one of the things I'll do, and they know I'm doing it half the time. How was your week? And they'll start talking, and I'll sit there. Now, the initial thought is he's taking notes about my week.
Sure.
I am not.
Nope.
I'm listening to all the sentences that they're saying that are worrisome or negative.
Sure.
And I'll write those down. And at the end of their description of their week, or maybe sometimes if I've hit the bottom of the page, I'm like, stop. And I'll just hand them the sheet of paper and say, oh man, I worked so hard. I'm not saying I don't want.
Yeah.
And I said it 22 times in the middle of all of that. But it's to bring that awareness to them, the way they're thinking, they're worrying about things, and they use don'ts as an excuse. Like, it would be better to live this way than that way. But the reason why they're going left instead of right is because they're asking themselves, why not? I could go to the gym every day, or I could sit home and watch TV. Why not? Who am I hurting? I'm not hurting anybody. I deserve this. I've worked hard. I bought the TV. It's the weekend. I can sit here and watch TV, and I'm not hurting anybody. Now, the family may be up and doing things and going out and going to the gym and, participating, in game night, playing games, doing things together, doing things that everybody enjoys, doing things that are healthy. But that person is sitting there, they're going, I can watch football all weekend if I want. Why not? I'm not hurting anybody. They're choosing it based on a negative. And then that seems to validate their negativity, and they don't recognize that is going on within themselves.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I was sitting there thinking to myself, how many hours did I spend watching football over the weekend, over the long weekend? And here's I talk so enthusiastically about football because I grew up playing it. I love the sport. I mostly loved playing the sport.
Sure.
I watched over the weekend maybe 1 hour.
Really?
Out of all the games. As a matter of fact, I didn't watch one down of the actual Colorado game.
No.
I didn't watch one down of the K-State game. I don't have ESPN Plus. But I have the ESPN app.
Sure.
And I watch the highlights.
Oh, yeah.
And I love a good story. Mm-hmm. And so I've been kind of paying attention to the Colorado story and what Sanders was doing. But when I saw that they won, like that was the first thing that's the first time I knew the game was already over. So I saw it. So I don't spend a lot of time sitting around watching football, but I'm always engaged in the day through highlights.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because as I was using that kind of analogy, I'm like, oh no, I'm calling him out.
No.
I didn't mean to call you out.
No. And that's not how I took that, but it made me think, okay, so because I spend too much time in my recliner. Oh God. Matter of fact, the thought went through my head. You know what I want to do? I want to take the recliner out of the living room. I want to get rid of it because I spend too much time there. I'm sitting still way too much in that chair. I love that chair, but it's usually to take those power naps and lay on some heat for my back. But the reality is, you're absolutely right. We sit around and we're reactive to life instead of proactive.
Sure.
And Deion didn't just recruit all these guys and wait for the season to start.
Right.
They went through a rigorous preseason, spring ball preseason practices. I mean, they had 6 penalties. 6 penalties with all new guys basically playing. They had 5 guys with over 100 yards receiving. These are all records.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. He had them so ready to play. And that's what happens with the fundamentals when we spend daily time working on it. And you got to work on this. And that's something I want to start doing even more of, is working on it myself. And so it's all out ahead of us. That's the thing. If we want it, we can get it. But you got to go get it.
Move from tired to inspired.
Yep. It's good. I like that. That's going to be ringing in my ear.
That's
all
a good spot
week
to
long.
end. Leave that little earworm in everybody's ear. Move from tired to inspired. So,
yep.
want to thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Just These Guys, and a special shout out to Alberta, Canada.
This episode brought to you by Tim Hortons gluten-filled donuts. They're the best.
I am Lance.
And I'm Mike.
And we're Just These Guys, Catch you next week.
Just these guys, eh?
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, Ozer.
Hey.
What was that from? Hey, Ozer.
Yeah, the 2 guys. I can't think of their names.
Doug.
Doug.
Bob and Doug.
Bob.